Welcome, yogis. My name is Erin, and this is a YouTube channel for on-demand videos to supplement my donation-based yoga classes that I offer on Zoom. Really glad to be here with you. Last month, I surveyed my donation-based students about which topics related to asana, postures, and pranayama, breath control, they'd be most interested in exploring in a little more depth. And so based on that feedback, I kicked off this mini workshop series with a closer look at classical Surya Namaskar last week, classical sun salutes. So this week we'll continue with that theme, but we'll move on to focusing in more depth on modern Surya Namaskar A, modern sun salute A. And if you have a yoga mat, that's about all you'll need to follow along with me today, as well as any other props you normally like to have on hand. So let's get started. Surya Namaskar first became prevalent in yoga asana practice in the 1930s, during a surge in physical yoga culture in India at that time. And although there are dozens of forms of Surya Namaskar, today we tend to practice three main kinds: the classical form, modern A, and modern B. So why is Surya Namaskar so integral to a yoga practice, and particularly to a sustainable, wholesome yoga practice that you can maintain throughout your life? First, most students can access some form of sun salutes, either with modifications, variations, or props. So on the whole, they're fairly accessible. This is especially true for classical Surya Namaskar. As we'll see later in this mini workshop, the modern versions are a bit more vigorous and do require a bit more openness and strength. So why else are Surya Namaskar so important? They warm and awaken the entire body, soften muscles, and open joints. This is really key. Joint health is one of those aspects of a physical yoga practice that can really determine how sustainable your practice is. Sun salutes also stimulate neurological, circulatory, and subtle body energetic pathways. Sun salutes teach the synchronization of movement and breath, and this is at the heart of yoga. And so though a lot of us have been drawn to yoga for the physical fitness aspect, to sweat, or maybe to get a workout, which is wonderful, truly when we come to our mats, we're cultivating a connection between breath and movement. And through sun salutes, we can learn to feel that connection from a very embodied, ingrained place. And then finally, Surya Namaskar allow for really creative sequencing, both if you're a yoga teacher in the classes you prepare, taking a basic sun salute and adding extra components throughout, but also in your home practice. You don't have to be a yoga teacher to get creative and find innovative ways to work with sun salutes. And if you're looking for a resource, if you're interested in delving even more into this topic, I recommend a book called Sun Yoga by Hanita Stenhouse. So you can check that out in your own time. So with that broad overview in mind, let's narrow the focus a bit to the modern Surya Namaskar, modern sun salutes. So if you've taken any yoga classes before, it's likely that you've practiced modern A, maybe modern B as well, whether you realized it or not. And in fact, modern sun salutes are much more commonly integrated into Western yoga classes. If you've taken classes with me, you know that I use classical Surya Namaskar in all of my classes as a very safe, accessible way to warm up. Modern A in particular provides a much deeper warm-up and awakening to the body and the breath. And it also introduces 4 new asanas, 4 new poses that aren't included in the classical sun salutes. And then modern sun salute B offers an even stronger sequence, more designed for experienced yogis, especially in terms of hip flexor engagement and understanding pelvis and spinal alignment and tilting. So with that in mind, let's do a simple warm-up, and then we'll start to break down the components of modern Surya Namaskar A. We'll begin in a comfortable seat on your mat if you're not already, either finding Sukhasana, one leg in front, or Ardha Padmasana, crossing one foot over the opposite hip crease. When you find your seat, roll your shoulders down and back, stack your shoulders over your hips, and feel your core begin to engage. From here, bring the hands to the knees and begin to breathe deeply. Take a few rounds of diaphragmatic breath, with the inhales, feeling the belly rise to the hands, and on the exhales, pushing the air up and out. Take 2 more rounds of your breath, tuning into your rhythmic pace of breath today. Good. From here, roll over the legs and we'll make our way right into tabletop pose. Stacking shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, and then tuck the toes behind you. Fingers are spread very wide, lengthen through the back of the neck, and pull in and up from the navel. With an inhale, drop the belly, lift the chest, Marjaryasana, cow pose. Exhale, tuck the chin, pull the belly in and up, Bitilasana, cat. Move through a few more rounds of cow-cat on your breath, striving to keep everything from shoulders and hips down, stationary, and just undulating through the spine and neck. Keep the breath moving here, maybe already starting to generate a little heat right behind the belly. One more full round, inhaling to cow, and exhaling cat. We'll meet back in neutral tabletop. Toes are tucked. One more inhale, press the floor away. And on the exhale, send the hips up and back. Our first downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And as you're probably aware, down dog is an integral pose throughout all of our sun salutes. As you hold your down dog here, let the heels sink toward the mat, straighten through the arms. Imagine someone pressing the whole hand down, and then relax the head and neck. Through our practice of sun salutes, eventually, Adho Mukha Svanasana will become a resting pose. Take one more breath cycle here. Let the heels sink and send the hips back. With your next inhale, roll forward to plank, Phalakasana. If this feels too intense or the buttocks drops or is lifted, you can lower to the knees, building some core strength. Either way, shoulders right over wrists, reach the top of the head forward, push the heels back, and roll the inner thighs together and up. One more inhale. Exhale, up and back, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Inhale, roll forward to plank. And this time, exhale, lower, hug the elbows to the ribs, and lower all the way to the belly. Untuck your toes, and with an inhale, lift the chest up, roll the shoulders down and back, and really press the tops of your feet to the mat so the knees begin to lift. From here, press through the palms a little more firmly, and then hover the hands. Draw the elbows back and feel all the muscles along the spine engage. One more inhale. Exhale, plant the hands, tuck the toes, and lift up through plank to downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take 2 deep breath cycles here, breathing into that opening through the hamstrings and keeping the belly drawn in and up. We'll take that one more time, warming up here. With an inhale, forward to plank, strong and steady. Exhale, lower, elbows to ribs, to the belly. Untuck the toes. Inhale for cobra. Hips are still on the mat here. Tops of the feet are pressing down. Exhale, press up and back, downward facing dog. 2 deep breath cycles here, in and out through the nose. And with your next inhale, bring the gaze between the thumbs, come up on the tiptoes, and begin to tiptoe toward the hands. Make this really active. Lift up from the perineum and the navel, Let the hips be light, shoulders are strong. We'll meet in a forward fold, Uttanasana. Clasp the opposite elbows here and begin to sway left and right, stretching through the outer hips as you draw the weight toward the toes. And then come back through center. Let the arms go. Take a deep bend in the knees, spread the toes wide, and begin to roll up along the spine. Really press through the feet and let the head and shoulders come last. We'll meet in Tadasana, mountain pose. Big toes together, heels slightly apart. If that feels uncomfortable on the knees, you can always bring feet hips distance apart here. And then reach your fingers down. So before we break down modern Surya Namaskar A, take a moment here to find your full body engagement in your mountain pose. Press through all four corners of the feet, reach down through the fingers, and lift up through the belly. Lift your kneecaps, feeling the quads grow strong, and then squeeze the glutes together as you tuck the tailbone underneath. Lightly squeeze shoulder blades down and back, and let the gaze be soft and steady. Take 2 breath cycles here. Good. So we'll walk us through all the components of modern Sun Salute A, modern Surya Namaskar A. And then when we do that, we'll take it again on the breath. To begin, Samastihi, equal standing pose, thumbs to heart, heart to thumbs. Take an inhale and exhale. Next, inhale, arms lower and sweep out and up, palms touch. Holding here, Urdhva Hastasana. Make sure you don't collapse through the lower back. One more inhale. Exhale, arms out and down, swan dive forward. Keep the belly active. When you find your forward fold, take an inhale, half lift, and hold. So often when we half lift, we let our shoulders scrunch up and we round the back. See if you can find your lift, pulling the shoulders forward and then down and back. Pull the belly in and up. And feel the backs of the legs nice and open. One more inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold, plant your hands, and then bend your knees so you can step right back to plank. So in modern A, we're not going into down dog, we're going right back to plank, a little more intense, but still the option to lower knees here. Take an inhale in your plank pose. On the exhale, roll forward on the toes and then lower halfway. If this feels okay, we'll hold here, Chaturanga, checking in that your shoulders are just at the height of your elbows, sternum is pulling forward, heels pushing back. From here, flip your feet, take an inhale and lift up to upward facing dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So in upward facing dog, only the tops of feet and hands are on the mat. Hips, legs, knees are lifted, sternum pushing up, shoulders down and back for a deeper back bend here than cobra. Take an inhale, lift the heart up, press through the palms, and on the exhale, roll over the toes and back to downward facing dog. Take a few rounds of breath here. You can lower to the knees as you need. And so that was called Chaturanga Dandasana, a yogic push-up. When we move through Chaturanga, really emphasizing lowering halfway down, pushing the sternum forward, and then moving right into up dog. Take one more inhale in down dog. Exhale it out. With your next inhale, gaze between the thumbs. And on the exhale, step all the way forward between the hands and fold.
There's also an option for a float forward method that I'll mention later. But for most of us, especially in the beginning of a practice, we'll want to focus on stepping forward with core engagement. We'll come back to our half lift.
Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, fingertips to shins, chest forward, shoulders back. One more inhale, pull the belly up. Exhale, fold. Root through the feet, and with an inhale, rise, arms out and up, palms touch. Exhale, Samastitihi. So that completes one round of modern Surya Namaskar A. For those who took my workshop on classical sun salutes, you'll notice that there's not a right side and a left side with the modern sun salutes. One round simply involves both legs. So we'll come back to the top of the mat here. We'll put that together on the breath. Remember, feel free to lower your knees in plank. And if it doesn't feel comfortable lowering halfway into chaturanga, you can lower all the way to the belly and find cobra pose instead. From Tadasana, mountain pose. Inhale, palms to heart center. Exhale, release. Inhale, arms out and up, palms touch. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold, plant the hands and step back to plank on one breath. Inhale, forward on the toes. Exhale, lower halfway or to the belly. If you lowered halfway, inhale for up dog, press the floor away. Exhale, hips up and back, downward facing dog. We'll hold here about 5 breaths. And remember, in any yoga class or home practice, you can always find child's pose or tabletop instead when you need a rest. Use your breath to guide where you're at. And with your next inhale, gaze between the thumbs. On the exhale, big step forward, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, heart center. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, back to plank. Inhale, roll forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Inhale for up dog, only hands and feet on the mat. Exhale, up and back, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take about 5 breaths here, and we'll check in with our hands and feet alignment. Make sure your hands are in the same line as your shoulder heads, and feet together, big toes touching, or feet hips distance apart. Throughout our sun salutes, we want to keep our hands and feet in the same place every time we move through plank or down dog. With your next inhale, gaze between the thumbs, and on the exhale, big step forward and fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms out and up. And exhale, heart center and release. Nicely done. So that's the basic component of modern Surya Namaskar A. A couple other options for more experienced practitioners, for those of you wanting a little more vigor to your sun salutes. Walk it through this time, explaining the floating forward and floating back. So you may have seen this. Sometimes it's called a jump back. I prefer to use the word float because we really don't want to jump. We want to find levity from the pelvic floor and from the belly so that we truly are floating forward with the strength of the core and hands. So you're welcome to watch or follow along if you're familiar. Inhale, heart center. Exhale, release. Inhale, out and up. Exhale, fold. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, plant the hands and jump back to Chaturanga. So notice where I'm at. I didn't jump back to full plank. This puts a lot of pressure on the wrist and elbow joints. So if you're working on a float back here, make sure you're able to float back right to your yoga push-up. Elbows 90 degrees, shoulders at the height of elbows. And then with an inhale, up dog, Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Exhale, up and back, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Take about 5 breath cycles here. Draw the inner elbows to the head, push the hips up and back, and knit the lower ribs in. And if you're feeling ready to move toward a float forward rather than a step forward, same mechanics, a little more bandha engagement, a little more engagement of deep internal energy locks. Take an inhale, gaze between the thumbs, come up on the tiptoes, and with the exhale, pull the knees to the chest and float the feet between the hands and fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms out and up. And exhale, heart center and release. Good effort. Shake that out. Take a moment here as we wind down this mini workshop to notice the effects, even of those few rounds of modern Surya Namaskar A. Probably feeling some heat, maybe sweating a little bit, feeling some engagement of the arm muscles, the leg muscles, and the core and back body. And on a more subtle body level, maybe you're feeling more grounded, more open. Maybe the mind is feeling a little more focused. And these are all some of the benefits we can expect to notice with a regular practice of sun salutes. So to wrap things up here, in our modern Surya Namaskar A, we're moving on the breath, but we hold for about 5 breaths in down dog. Really focus on working up to 5 continuous cycles of Surya Namaskar A in your own practice. And you'll know when that becomes sustainable, when the breath is no longer choppy. You can maintain your smooth yogic breath through your sun salutes. It's a great idea to warm up with classical Surya Namaskar. So if you're starting to develop a home practice, you can try 5 rounds of classical sun salutes, a gentler way to warm up the body, and then move on to modern A. And then lastly, really focus on not sinking into the joints. So as you're exploring your plank pose, notice if you feel that your hips are sinking or your shoulders are collapsing, and work on deeper body engagement. And the same with Chaturanga. If you're lowering and you're noticing elbows are far back, probably best to keep the knees lowered or first practice lowering all the way to the belly. Well, thank you all for joining today. Stay tuned for the next mini workshop on Surya Namaskar Modern B. And if you'd like to make a donation in support of donation-based yoga, you can donate through PayPal or Venmo to Freelancer PhD, FreeLancer PhD. And if you're not already, you're welcome to join my donation-based yoga Facebook group. And all the classes truly are pay what you can. I'd love to see you on your mat. Thanks so much. Namaste.